Hello you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is very special because today is going to be all about one of the most challenging yet rewarding parts of postpartum and motherhood, which is breastfeeding. I want to share with you guys my breastfeeding experience as well as some tips, just because I know that every single mama is different and I feel like we can never get enough information or shared experience about breastfeeding. Before I say anything, I just want a disclaimer that I do believe fed is best. So if you're unable to breastfeed your child for any reason, as long as you're able to get them fed, whether that's through formula and a combination of formula and breastfeeding, fed is best. However, we do recognize that breast milk is the best possible and most customized, I would say, nutrition for your baby. With that being said, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, and let's get into the video. So if you are going to be breast pumping, you definitely want a hands-free pump. It has been a total game changer for me. So I've been using the Cara breast pump. Thank you, Cara, for sponsoring this. And I have seen really great results with the breast pump, especially because it has just allowed me to be more hands-free. It's very easy to use. It has a great design and it's very painless compared to a lot of the other breast pumps that I've used. I never had that my first time around. This time around, I've been obsessed, okay? If you want to get your hands-free breast pump today, check the description box for my discount code. I have a 2.5-year-old and I have a 4-month-old, and my breastfeeding journeys for both have been very different. First child was actually born in New York City. We just moved to Dallas, Texas a little over a year ago. When I delivered her, my milk didn't come in for, I want to say, like 3 or 4 days after birth. At the time, even though I had tried to do as much education as possible, I think breastfeeding was something that I was a little underinformed about. You know, you're going through that like stage of just giving birth and you're worried about your recovery and everything, and my milk had not come in. It was pressed on me to go ahead and supplement with formula. I ended up giving my baby formula before she even had breast milk at all. In hindsight, you know, with knowing what I know now, and don't quote me on this because I'm not like a pediatric nurse or anything, I think you can wait like 2 to 3 days without looking into supplementing with formula, and at the time I had no idea. She might have had a tiny bit of colostrum, but for the most part she was on formula right away. So when I got home from the hospital, started pumping, and finally my milk had come in, and when my milk came in, it was intense. Like, I remember just waking up the next morning and I had these huge balloons on my chest, looked like I had gotten a boob job overnight. My milk was in. Another thing I was underinformed about was the actual breastfeeding and latching and whatnot, and even though I had had a couple lactation consultants help me out in the hospital, I truthfully have to say I never really had a great hold on it. Like, I was never comfortable with it. It was painful, but like, you know, my baby was uncomfortable. I never really knew how much she was getting. And so it was just more comforting to me to just pump and feed her that way, or use formula and feed her that way, just so that I had a peace of mind knowing that she was gaining weight and that she was eating. I ended up pumping mostly, and then I stopped at around 3.5 months. My milk supply had kind of dwindled. I went back to work at that time. It was almost like a catch-22. Obviously, the less you pump and the less you breastfeed, the less your milk is going to come out. And then it was more like, oh, well, I'm not expressing that much milk, so let me just rely on formula. So from about 4 months on, my oldest, she just had formula. Now, with this baby, things have been a lot different. I have had a lot more experience just in general as a mom, and I have done a lot more research, and I went into it more determined that I wanted to become more comfortable with breastfeeding. I spent time, you know, during my pregnancy thinking like, what were the things that made me so uncomfortable about breastfeeding, and how can I kind of rectify those? After this pregnancy, I ended up having my, baby. I delivered and everything. I was a lot more chill and a lot more relaxed when it came to deciding whether or not we were going to supplement with formula off bat. Luckily for me, my milk came in the second day when we were in the hospital. It was a whole thing because we actually were diagnosed, me and my baby were diagnosed with COVID. She also had jaundice at the time, so it's really important for babies to have wet and dirty diapers so that they can pee and poop out the bilirubin in their system. The hospital did not have any breast pumps for me to use. That's a whole other story, but I had my family bring a breast pump up just because I wanted to be sure that she was definitely eating enough. Family brought up my breast pump and I was able to see that she was eating, and I just had a better experience. Overall, I was just more relaxed, more informed. She did a really good job of latching, and I'm not gonna lie, it was still very painful at the beginning, especially because not only is it painful around the nipples area, but your uterus is recontracting back down in size after you give birth, and every time you breastfeed or breast pump, it is like stimulating that. And when you have more than one child, it could be even more and more painful, like the more children that you have, not to scare anybody. As of right now, my baby is almost 5 months, and I was exclusively breastfeeding her until about 4 months on the dot. Like 2 to 3 weeks ago is when we introduced formula, and I'll tell you the reasoning for that a little later on. She is doing combo feeding now, so she's breastfeeding, I'm pumping, and also she is having formula. Since I've given you guys my background and my journey and where I'm at right now, I want to also leave you guys with some tips that helped me. Alright, so the first tip that I have for you guys, or anyone that is kind of struggling, is to know that you don't have to exclusively breastfeed. Fed is best. You want to be giving your baby breast milk if you can. If you can give your baby breast milk exclusively, that is ideal, but there are so many other factors that come into play, whether it's, your milk supply, or whether you're going back to work, or whether you have other children. The list is really endless. So I think taking it out of your head, taking the pressure off, and knowing that as long as you're getting your baby some breast milk, and you don't have to feel super pressured to exclusively breastfeed. All right, so the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is some of the challenges that I face with breastfeeding. I have a very strong, kind of overactive letdown. I don't know if that would be the proper way to describe it. My baby starts feeding and then the milk just comes out like the Nile River, honey, okay? It can be problematic because your baby can kind of choke, and it's spraying out and it's making a mess everywhere. And it wasn't until pretty recently that I realized that I probably will have to catch letdown first or pump first prior to feeding baby. And I'm still kind of working through that, so if you have any tips on that, please let me know. It seems like a good problem to have, but it also kind of inhibited me from feeling confident about breastfeeding more in public, because I just didn't want milk spraying or squirting all over everything. The second tip that I have is centered around your personal nutrition. You can't pour from an empty cup, and I feel like this just rings really true, especially in a breastfeeding journey. So you have to make sure that you are staying very well hydrated. I try to have 4 to 6 ounces of water every time I breastfeed at the very least. Also want to make sure that you're having enough calories, because you do burn calories and calories shift during your breastfeeding. Then you also want to make sure you have a high protein diet, and that's what a lot of nurses and lactation consultants recommend. Definitely make sure that you are attending to your own health first, and I think that will translate into the quantity of your milk supply. Some of my favorite products that kind of help with the early stages of breastfeeding. I had this product that I tried called After Ease, and I will link it down below. And it's these herbal drops that I put in water immediately after I gave birth, and it was supposed to help with the pain of your uterus recontracting back down to size. I really do think that it helped. Obviously, I didn't do a scientific study on it, so it might be placebo effect, but I will definitely drop that in the link for you guys. Make sure, you check in with your doctor before you start any, medicines or anything like that. The Mama Earth, is it Mama Earth or Earth Mama nipple balm? I really, really love that. It is great. You don't have to rinse it off before you breastfeed your baby, and it really helps with cracked nipples. The next product I want to talk about is the Haka, which I think is becoming increasingly more popular. But basically it's like a manual little breast pump, a little like silicone breast pump that you can attach to the other breast when you're breastfeeding on one side, and it will collect any letdown that's dripping from the other side. I never used that at all my first time, and this time I've used it so much. I've considered having multiple like everywhere, like leaving some in the car. It's just really effective at collecting that letdown. I know that there's a huge movement for moms to feel comfortable breastfeeding in public, and if you do that, like, I'm not against that, more power to you, but for me, I just feel sometimes more comfortable with cover on. I have this cover that doubles as like a car seat cover, so it's like a big cape and you just kind of put your head through it and you can cover yourself, and I feel really comfortable carrying that around. Especially, I think, like, for beginner moms, it can be a little bit intimidating to be out in public and you're like not totally sure what you're doing and just like whip out your boob. Alright guys, that was short and sweet. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything else further, and thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.